This is a download from BFM 89.9, the business station.
Good afternoon, this is Resource Centre. I'm Maya Tan. Now, in theory, penetrating exciting new markets should be simple, particularly if you have a strong product or service offering. However, it can still be daunting once cultural, linguistic and demographic factors, as well as exchange rates and country risk, are taken into account. The Eurasia Consortium Malaysia has successfully assisted the transition of Malaysian businesses into global businesses. And this year, they are propelling more Malaysian businesses from the fashion, spa and F&B sector into the UK, US, Japanese and Middle Eastern markets. Here to tell us more is Dr. Stuart Kewley, Chairman of the Eurasia Consortium, the global headquarters in the UK. Welcome.
Thank you, Maya. It's great to be here.
Tell us about the work you're doing with Malaysian businesses. I believe one of your success stories from last year is with the apparel label MimpiKita.
What we try and do is we try and focus on the differentiation of the product. And that's critical to us because without differentiation, there's nothing different. And what we do is we design the market access strategy on behalf of the company. And the thing that makes the Eurasia Consortium and its Malaysian division, TECM, the Eurasia Consortium Malaysia, quite different is that we actually implement the strategy on their behalf. So essentially, we become their team on the ground. And this has been very, very typical of MimpiKita's story. So we worked with them from about 2014. We brought them into the UK market. And the whole kind of engagement at that time was to really build visibility around their brand. They were an unknown product within the European market. Great designs, absolutely beautiful clothes, but they were unknown. And the irony that they faced is that they were established designers in their own right in Malaysia, yet they were relatively unknown in the UK market. So it was all about building traction. It was about building visibility and kind of responsiveness to the brand. And that kind of campaign ended in September 2014 when we launched them on Fashion Scout and London Fashion Week. And that was their spring-summer 2016 collection. And it was very well received at that time. And the girls were very happy about this. You know, this was really exciting for them. But really, that was just the start. And what we've done subsequently is to really build traction in the market in and around sales. We also have really decided to engage more deeply with the company in Europe. So what we did is we created a UK subsidiary of MimpiKita called MimpiKita London. And the Eurasia Consortium, because we have an investment dimension within the company, we've taken a 50% equity stake in MimpiKita London.
All right, so it's not just step-by-step counsel, it's also an opportunity in terms of investment.
We are really hands-on. We believe in the brand, we believe in the company, and we want to actually build the company. So where we are right now with MimpiKita, it's about generating a revenue stream. And again, that's one of the unique features of Eurasia in the sense that we try and generate a revenue stream within 3 months of engagement within the market. And that kind of helps to underwrite the initial capital outlay for the company. So it's quite important.
Well, how would you rate the potential of companies from Malaysia that you observe or who come to you?
You know, Malaysia's a great market. We actually were in China for quite a long time, and we actually began to look for an alternative regional hub for our operations, and Malaysia came number one. And the reason behind that was a common legal system with the UK, common tax system with the UK. English is, it's the first, kind of the second language here, so it's widely spoken. And it's just a really, really great place. You have a highly skilled, well-educated workforce. I can be in Shanghai in 7 hours. I can be in Tokyo in 6. I can be in Ho Chi Minh City in 4 or 5 hours. So it's a great place for us to be. And I think the potential here is enormous. There's a few things that Malaysian companies need to kind of work on. A lot of it's to do with confidence. A lot of it is to do with moving away from being too introspective. And a lot of it is to do with really being able to showcase more comprehensively outside their home market the wonderful things that they've actually got to offer.
Well, the sentiment out here in Malaysia is that the economy is all doom and gloom, although the ringgit has strengthened somewhat at this point.
That's right. And the pound's dipped because of the Brexit.
But what are your views on going international in uncertain times such as this?
It's critical. Since the Eurasia Consortium was started, our view is that we operate in a global marketplace and we can't get away from this. And this is what kind of drives me crazy a little bit about the kind of introspection in the UK that we're seeing right now, and moving away perhaps from the engagement with the European Union. We just need to operate in a global marketplace. We do more business outside the UK than we do inside the UK. We have more clients from outside the UK than we do British clients. And that's very, very important. And this should be at the top of every company's list. With the creation of the WTO, 1994, the liberalisation of global markets, there's no excuse to actually go overseas. And I think the Malaysian government understands this, and it's trying to forge a deeper integration, particularly around the ASEAN states, and elsewhere, and through the trade agreements that they're actually signing right now. So I think it should be critical. It's just a matter, and I think what again is really, really important. We used to think of kind of multinationals. Now we think of micro multinationals, these smaller firms, due to changes in communication, etc., due to the ease of movement across borders. It's much easier now to do this.
Well, what are your views on the TVPA and how it's going to affect these micronational companies?
It's a tough one, and it's really about integration. I think the harmonization of the regulations is critically important, and that means that in many instances that what you'll need to do is you'll probably need to find, at the government level, the government stepping up and mutual recognition, etc., which is critically important. But then that should also, and I suppose the flip side of these agreements is it looks very good on paper, but in reality there's always segments that are never fully liberalised. But on the other hand, it creates opportunities. And these opportunities really should be exploited.
And so for a company like MimpiKita, this little micro multinational companies, right? Yeah. What are the benefits? Access to markets, access to funds? The
kind of feedback that we had from our discussions with MimpiKita is that really there was two challenges that they were facing within the Malaysian market. The kind of Me Too companies that were coming along, and the girls were working very hard on very unique and original designs. And yet, as soon as those designs hit the marketplace, there was companies that would crop up, not necessarily from Malaysia, they were actually replicating those designs, and selling them, undercutting them in terms of their cost. And so this was a real IP challenge for them, So that was one thing. And then the perception was that the Malaysian market isn't a huge market, and it's quite intensely competitive in the sector that they operate. So they were looking at moving into a market whereby they were able to command a higher price point in that market for their products, which is exactly what we're trying to do. So the way in which we've taken them into the UK market, as I said, the first engagement was really looking at building brand visibility. We achieved that goal at Fashion Week. What we're trying to do now is we're trying to generate sales. And it's kind of interesting. I've just come back from Moda. As you may know, Moda is the largest fashion trade show. It's at the NEC in Birmingham. So we were there with MimpiKita from Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Set up Saturday. We concluded on Tuesday. And the strategy behind our engagement with the market is that we operate on a multiple level with MimpiKita. On the one hand, we know there's a certain demographic that will be attracted particularly to their spring-summer range, and that demographic is the boutique owners. What people don't really understand is that, the United Kingdom doesn't end at the Watford Gap. So, as soon as you leave London, there is life outside there. We're actually based in Oxford, we're not based in London. And you have areas of pretty significant affluence in what we call our market towns. And generally what happens is that people will maybe work in the cities, the Leeds, Manchester, the Londons, these big Birmingham, these big cosmopolitan cities. Then when they get married and have kids, they don't want to live in the city anymore, and they'll move out to the country because it's a small country. I can be in London in 1.5 hours, and I live in the Cotswolds. So I have the quality of life. I can still make it to the nation's capital. Within these market towns, you have independent boutique owners that are looking for MimpiKita product. And they have quite an affluent clientele. They're not challenged by the traditional competitors from the high street because they're in a slightly smaller market town. Their demographic is slightly higher, so slightly older, more mature, but they've got spending power.
They've got spending power,
So
and also they've gone beyond the high street, right?
Absolutely,
they love,
correct.
Discovering this exotic new
An
fashion
exclusive-
label. Yeah.
Absolutely, you've hit the nail right on the head, and that's what MimpiKita is selling. And that's
So that
what-
was your strategy for
So that's
them.
the one level. Now, on the second level, MimpiKita are still quite a young, on-trend fashion house, and so we need to cater to that constituency as well. So the people that come to Moda are the more mature, independent boutique owners who are looking for, as you mentioned, this exclusive, beautiful product coming out of Malaysia. On the other hand, the people that don't go to Moda will be our other kind of more our target market, and that's really where MimpiKita are looking. That's the kind of focus. So these are young, urban professionals with a disposable income that they're prepared to spend on fashion. And when we did our market research, we compared the French market with the UK market, and we found that on average, the typical young urban professional female in this range will spend about £200 more. Right? So they'll spend that more than their contemporary in France. So this is a very important market for us. But how we engage with that market, and they won't, the only time that they will go to those market town boutiques if they go shopping with their mothers. So what we need to do is we need to reach out to them, and how we do that is on a digital platform. And we're very much engaged in generating kind of pop-up shops. We do a lot of digital marketing. We use social media comprehensively to reach out to this constituency, this market.
Right, so you're working very intimately with your clients in that sense. It's almost yours. Yeah,
it's
like your baby.
I can tell you where the product was made, who stitched it, who did the detailing and the beadwork on it, etc. We need to know this because at the end of the day, we are MimpiKita in the UK, and we want to make it a success.
Well, what are some of the challenges that Malaysian companies commonly face in penetrating a new market? And, are there any blind spots that they often overlook? Sometimes it's not a matter of funding. They have the funding, and then they barge in, but then they find themselves short,
The two biggest challenges we've had really so far is with the company that we work with in the food and beverage industry, and also the nutraceuticals company. So they're both looking to move into the US market. In fact, we've put them in the US market already, and then also into the UK market. And the challenges that we face, and they are fairly significant challenges, and maybe the trade agreements will address this in the long term, but the challenges that we have are regulation. So for the food and beverage company, they are FDA approved, so they've received all the appropriate approval for their goods within the US market. But due to a lack of knowledge, I believe, about Malaysian produce within the regulatory bodies like the FDA, there are some kind of issues that come back again and again. And we spend a lot of time and a lot of effort lobbying these guys to try and, help them understand that we have FDA approval. And it can be it's a bureaucratic hiccup more than anything else. And then what we have is we need to be able to work hard to convince the US consumer that our product is unique, it's different, that it's not a generic Asian, product. This is really Malaysian cuisine. This is really delicious. And we have to work very hard to educate them, in relation to how you use the product. So basically what we did is we are now selling that product on 2 digital platforms within the US. We have our own website that you can buy. Obviously, it all comes from Malaysia. We have a distributor in the US, and you make your purchase on the website in US dollars, and we ship from the US. So that works very well. And then we moved this company onto the Amazon platform as well. And we sold more product on Amazon in 1 week than we did on our own platform, our own website in 1 month. So that was very, very good. The feedback that we got from the people that were buying the product is, love the product, it's really delicious, but we don't know how to use it. So what we did is we flew one of our principals over from the UK. She's an American girl from Denver. And we sat down with it's a family company, the food company that we work with. We sat down with one of the daughters, and we did a demonstration on how to cook masak merah, And that went down really well. We got a professional production company in, loaded it on the website, and we said, if you like this product, we're discounting it right now, and if you want to know how to use it, follow this link. And we saw our traffic increase by 50%.
Wow.
So that was great.
Amazing.
That was really, really good, yeah. And that's a solution to that kind of problem.
I'm speaking with Dr. Stuart Kewley, Chairman of the Eurasia Consortium. We're discussing taking businesses global and the challenges involved. Next up, have you got what it takes to take your business global, and how? On Resource Centre BFM 89.9. Good afternoon. You're listening to Resource Centre. I'm Maya Tan. Dr. Stuart Kewley, Chairman of the Eurasia Consortium from the global headquarters in the UK, is here discussing the work that the Eurasia Consortium in Malaysia is doing in taking Malaysian businesses global. Now, in your experience, what are the elements a company should have that would make it a prime candidate for going global, whether it's market penetration or whether it's getting investors?
So there's a key criteria that we look for. And unfortunately, we have to say no to companies more often than we say yes, because we don't want to waste their time and we don't want to waste their efforts and their resources.
And where do they normally fall short?
Because there is nothing that really differentiates them from their competitors. And they fall into all the usual traps that companies fall into. So they're exercising price leadership. You know, we had this with one of the Russian companies that we were working with. And they were a great company. They did testing equipment for contaminants in brownfield sites. When we started working with them, the actual quality of their product was Soviet grade. You know, it really was lots of greys and blacks and big chunky things and all that kind of stuff. And the guys worked really, really hard. We worked with them. We brought an industrial designer in to help them to actually reconfigure their product and just make it look a little bit more streamlined and more contemporary. And that worked fairly well. But really the kind of the USP that they were trading on was that they were cheaper than everybody else. But they hadn't looked outside their own market. And they were being squeezed in terms of their price points by similar companies coming out of China, which could really comprehensively leverage on the actual their labour costs at that time to give them competitive advantage. Now, we did have some successes with the Russian company in the sense that we took them to a trade fair in Munich. And then what we did is we tracked the hits on their website subsequently, and we found most of the hits were coming from two locations, either Turkey or Indonesia, and therefore that's the kind of efforts that we made in marketing their products within that market. But getting back to the original question, the real issue that many companies has is they can't differentiate their product or their service. And that is the fundamental thing that we look for. If that product or if that service has a critical differentiation that we can leverage on, and we can then actually really squeeze the life out of in terms of marketing it, that really works well for us. And, you know, when we were working with MimpiKita, we looked at the product. It was beautiful. It was well put together. It was stylish. It was the materials were, and we knew we had a winner with that company.
Would you advocate that all businesses, ideally, especially in our connected world today, have world domination on the cards from the get-go?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they should, you know, when we started this business in 2009, our market was the global marketplace. And that's really where companies should be looking for. They should be looking at, and it can be quite daunting and it can be quite difficult. But you have, you know, some really, really good professionals within the Malaysian government that, you know, from Matrade, etc., that will assist Malaysian companies that actually want to go overseas. They're not going to do it for them, you know, but what they will do is they'll provide market information. We're quite fortunate in the UK. The similar organisation within the United Kingdom is called UKTI, Trade and Investment. And basically, I will get emails from these guys twice a week with market opportunities in the sector that I want to go into. And that's very useful for us because they actually do the filtration for us. So I don't have to go through reams and reams and reams of material. I get what I need. So you know, the leverage and utilize the resources that are available, Matrade, etc. Think about the markets and do your market research, do your homework. We're quite fortunate because this is what we do. So instinctively, we have a feel for what market works. One of the designers that we're working with right now in the menswear industry, we want to take him to Japan. Because we know that the level of quality and sophistication of his design would work very well in Tokyo. It'll work very well in London as well, so we'll take him into the UK market. But we're looking at those two markets as the kind of target. So they should do their homework, definitely. They should think about which markets they should look at. They need to think about the price points and where their competitive advantage lies, and also things like the exchange rate as well, and the competitive environment within that market.
What other factors should be considered in deciding how to go global? There are factors such as localization or, navigating laws and regulations.
I think, the real issue right now is the cost implications with setting up. And one of the mistakes that Malaysian companies think about, is that they think they should have a physical presence within that market. And this has been suggested to us by a number of our clients. We want to have a physical presence, i.e. we want to have our own stores in London. And that is not right at the very, very beginning, because the capital outlay in related to that, based on the return on investment, it just doesn't match. So you'll be spending a lot for little in return. What you need to do is you need to build traction in the market, and you don't physically have to be there to do that. You can sell within that market on a digital platform from your home market, as long as you have someone in the market that's capable of dealing with your distribution, and as long as you have someone within that market that can even just support you, even if it's a friend, it's a relative, or someone that you went to university with, that can simply support the logistic side of things, so that, when you order from Malaysia and you've given a delivery time, you will get that product on that time that you want. So that's one way. If you don't want to work with an organization like ours, that's one way that you can kind of engage with that market. And then, based on the response, whether you're successful or maybe less successful, you need to learn from those lessons, and you need to understand why you've been successful or less so. Maybe you're not pricing your goods correctly. Maybe you're not going through the right channels. Maybe you're not leveraging on social media as well as you could. But these are all tools at your example. And these kind of the digital platforms today make the world borderless. I think it's very important.
So I guess what you do is you look at every company, and I guess every company should also examine these factors.
Sure.
Look at the product, and then look at the world map and see, where it would really sell like hotcakes, and then consider what it takes to be able to set up there, or to even just penetrate the market, but from here.
Sure, absolutely. And we've got we've got our models, we've got our Asia paradigm, etc., and we've used other models. And one of the things that was kind of what you need to kind of sometimes utilize is gut instinct, because I remember we sat down and we were thinking about what markets do we want to go into, and we had this very nice model that kind of just was a filtration model, and what came out was where we didn't want to be, and we didn't feel comfortable, and we just said, just tear it up, and just let's use just our gut instinct. Now, we didn't go in blind, we did our homework, but it has generated results for us. At one time in the company's history, 60% of our revenue was generated from the Chinese market. Now, times have changed, and we've kind of diversified away from China a little bit. One of the things maybe I didn't mention is that when we engage with companies and what we look for, what we do is a capabilities analysis. And that really looks at the internal dimensions within the organization. And that's quite important for us, because that also gives us an indication of whether or not we can actually work with that company. Every company is dysfunctional at some level or another, but we need to work through, elements or issues before we actually move them into the global stage.
It would kind of determine sustainability of that company as well.
You're absolutely right, and sustainability is critically important.
Well, this year you're taking several other companies international.
Correct, yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So right now, in terms of our portfolio, we have about 5 fashion houses that we're working with, UK, Japanese markets, and maybe Shanghai, not China, are markets that we will explore for those companies. And again, each of the companies is different from the other one. So in terms of what aspect of the market we'll be looking at is going to be quite different. We have a nutraceutical company as well, and a well-being company. The well-being company we're very keen on right now. We've just JV'd with them in the UK market, and we actually took a 51% stake, an equity stake in that company. And then, of course, we have our existing food and beverage company that we're looking to really build traction in the US market for. So we're selling them at the digital level, on 2 digital platforms. But really, where those guys should be is moving in to a physical retail outlet. So right now we're working with a number of distributors and brokers within the US market, West Coast, East Coast, New York and San Francisco, which is where our market research says there's a kind of demand for their product. But for those guys, it's a volumes game. So the more they sell, the larger the traction they have within that market.
Thanks very much for being with us.
Been a pleasure
It's wonderful to feel that passion emanating from you, helping these companies and in doing business as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Maya. Thank you.
Dr. Stuart Kewley, Chairman of the Eurasia Consortium in the UK. This has been Resource Centre. I'm Maya Tan for BFM 89.9.
You're still here. Good. Now, if you're listening to this podcast while on the treadmill, you're already off to a good start. If you're not, don't forget to join us at BFM's Health and Living Live 2016 on the 2nd of April. Find out how you can live a better, healthier life. Go on and register at bfm.my/health.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my or find us on iTunes. BFM 89.9, the business station.